They call it America's National Park of Speed, and the blasts through the trees here in Elkhart Lake definitely make it feel like it. But with little room for error in many places, this will not be a walk in the park. So pick a good spot to camp out and get ready for the PCA Sim Racing Series 13 Club Class. You'll see it all live here on RaceSpotTV. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth tonight is Rouse Racing driver Joey Atterbury. Behind the scenes is our director Ramiro Cisneros. We're thrilled to have Princess Cruises as the 2025 PCA title sponsor. And as the official cruise vacation partner of Series 13, they provide exclusive offers, including world-leading itineraries across a fleet of 16 elegant ships sailing to more than 330 global destinations. Reach out to the PCA concierge team to book your next adventure today by calling 833-679-2188. PCA is also proud to announce that they're celebrating the 70th anniversary in 2025. Here's to many more decades with North America's largest Porsche enthusiast group. Well, we come to a real classic here, Joey, a driver and a fan favorite.
Yeah, we are here at Road America, 4.03 miles and 14 turns in length. And like you said, it doesn't matter if you're a fan or if you're a driver. Everybody loves this place, filled with tons of elevation, incredibly high speeds, and lots of passing opportunities, too. So you better be confident with that brake pedal pressure and a couple key areas. Carousel and the kink, always iconic here at Road America.
You can see we are onto the latter half of the season. Silverstone marking the halfway point. Now brings us down to 3 events left, Road America being the first of those. It'll switch up with 2 very technical tracks. So this is really the last of the high-speed, long, straight circuits that these drivers are going to have before we go to Hungaroring in 2 weeks. Now, in the championship, it is Julian Velez leading by only 20 points. Derek Dirksen is the one giving chase, but then you've got a big leap. Look at that, 100 points all the way down to Ben Leung, with Terrence Tong another 50 points back from him. So there's a lot of separation behind the top drivers who are in quite a tussle. There is an extreme tie, though. 3 drivers, Green, McKinney, and Jenks, all tied for 6th place, and that's only 20 points behind John Gibson as well. So watch for those drivers to have to fight it out for the last few spots in the top 10 here at the end of the season. And of course, as we get ready for the qualifying session here, not a place where it's going to be as important, and we've got pretty good conditions as well, it looks like, on the weather, Joey.
Yeah, it is a beautiful day out there at Elkhart, and not too hot out there, so the cars should be gripping up nicely. I believe they are in their qualifying session right now. Basically, they have 10 minutes and up to 3 laps to put down that qualifying time, set today's grid. Right now, provisional pole is held by Sylvester Canny up there with a 2:03.556 as we watch Dale Green come up and over turn number 7.
And it might be very tight in the top group. I'm not sure if they're going to run away at the very front, but I know from 3rd down to 8th at the end of the warm-up session, we had that many cars that were in a 1/10 of a second. I'm not saying, a couple tenths. 1/10 of a second, all of those cars were that close over this 4-mile course. So if we have that close of battling, it is going to be a real ringer today.
Well, let's just kind of put your theory to test here. I'm looking at Velez. They're in 2nd place, and then you got to go all the way back to, I think, Terrence Tong before you find somebody further than a 1/4 of a second slower than Julian. So it kind of displays your point, Joe Peak, that the middle of the top 10 extremely stacked on top of each other.
Michael McKinney in the 527. Coming around one of the more famous corners, Canada Corner, and then up over the very tricky Bill Mitchell Bend, a site of extreme drama yesterday where our leaders took each other out in the pro class. Let's hope we get some more clean racing today for the finish, but definitely it gave us a lot of excitement to wrap it up. And up the hill for McKinney. Let's see if he can improve on this 7th place.
puts down here a 2:04.6, so it's not actually going to be improving his lap time. And I think I saw Terrence Tong slipped into, I believe, 7th place as McKinney crossed the line there. So it looks like he'll look towards lap number 3 as we check on Julian here in the number 33 car. This is going down the straightaway towards turn number 5. One of these very, very long straights here at Road America, and probably your biggest brake zone. You see a lot of these drivers kind of using that extra track to the right, and in fact, Julian says, you know what, it might have been a little bit too deep into that corner. Probably has to do a little bit of a mental reset and get back to it.
Unfortunately, he's on his last lap, so that's it for him. Meanwhile, our top 2 split by 0.07 of a second. Canny and Leung are both on their final lap, and they're at about the same spot on the track, so this is going to be very quick to see which amongst them can get the best one. Robert Neville not happy with his run through turn 5. You saw a shake of the head there.
Sometimes as a driver, you just know when you didn't quite hit your mark perfectly and you left a little bit of time on the table. And here in iRacing, you have all of these, call it add-ons and nannies that, yeah, Joe, if you really blow a corner, it can display almost immediately in that delta bar. And that can be a frustrating sight, too.
Yeah, there's times where I kind of want that, but other times I almost don't, because it's like, well, then I'm going to be distracted and I'll push too hard. I'm kind of curious which kind of driver Neville is as he brings it around. I just realized, I think his car actually matches the shirt he's wearing.
You know, I'll have to take a look at his in-car camera shot, if you will, next time it pops up. I did recognize kind of that little bit of a blue plaid theme, and he is able to kind of power down out of Canada corner nicely. This corner is pretty much easy flat out in these GT3 cars, but turn 14 at the end of this circuit can be such a doozy. You really got to get on the throttle as soon as possible, because you see it's an uphill run all the way to start finish. You need as much motor as possible.
All right, Neville across the line. Where is this going to place him? He's all the way down in 20th right now. Needs a good run. He does improve, but he does jump up. It just took a moment on a time, and in scoring 10th place, that's a huge leap. By the way, if you look on the tower on the left, Leung lost that second place to Mark Foley. Neither Ben nor Sylvester were able to improve on their final lap.
You had mentioned the jump that Neville pretty much 15, 17 positions, and it was only about a half a second faster than his previous lap time. So I'm just drawn back to what you said at the beginning of today's broadcast here. It doesn't matter if you're inside the top 10. I think you could pretty much look at this entire field, and a couple tenths is going to jump you up more than a handful of positions.
There's David Glenn. So no, there wasn't a magic driverless car out there, as whoever's camera we had. That person had stepped away for a brief moment, down through the hurry downs and into the carousel, which actually has quite a bit of drop in elevation here as well. At turn 8 there, you're all the way up to the side of that cliff that you go alongside here.
Yeah, at the top of the carousel, and then all the way through it, you're kind of relying on that front left tire. If they're modulating with your right foot on the gas to just try to keep the car rotated, and looks like we have hit an end to qualifying.
Didn't get to complete that lap, unfortunately, but up at the front, we did see Sylvester Canny come away with the pole here. That doesn't count for any bonus points, but we'll give him a good starting spot. Mark Foley will be next to him. Ben Leung starts in 3rd. Julian Velez only needed his first lap, essentially, to set a time, and that was good enough for 4th. Richard Woodruff will be in 5th, with Derek Dirksen starting in the 6th position. From there, on the next page, it is Terrence Tong starting in 7th. Michael McKinney, good enough for P8. Mark Rondeau in the 9th spot. Robert Neville, we saw him jump up to that top 10 with his final lap. Patrick Adamczyk will be 11th, and outside of row 6 goes to Robert Lacroix.
In 13th, we've got Charlie Boyer. Next to him is going to be Rex Girawala in 14th. Peter Coomer here in 15th place, with Mark Doran starting 16th. Dale Green in 17th, with Ken Eskridge back here in 18th. In 19th, we've got Mike Matson with Kellen Heimbucher lined up next to him in 20th. David Glenn in 21st, with David Snelling, the pair of Davids there, 21st and 22nd. Steve Komatz 23rd, and James Hayash in 24th.
25th goes to Robert Cottle, with Chris Sherburne to his outside. Nick Francis 27th. Scott Bowers in 28th, and Gary Reese will round out our 29 car field. for today's 60-minute event. Should be a fun one. I'm glad we've got you here for this track. Whenever we have these North American tracks and you join us, Joey, I always look forward to the pole lap because 9 times out of 10, you've actually driven on these tracks, so I know I can hear some good insight.
Yeah, and Road America is definitely one of my favorites, easily inside the top 3 of any circuit here in North America. So the run up the front straightaway, make sure you got a good run out of turn 14 and just put your foot flat to the floor because you're going to be on the accelerator for quite some time up and over the start-finish line here. I'm sure we'll get that lap queued back up in just a moment as we watch some of these cars go around in what is warm-up right now. Looks to be about 2.5 minutes remaining here in this 5-minute warm-up session.
Just a bit of time left before we get to go racing. Here we go. I think we've got it spooled up now and should be just about the right amount of time with this being a 2-minute lap.
And like I said, you just keep your right foot flat to the floor up this uphill front straightaway there, start finish. Kind of crest the top of the hill right here. Pick out your brake marker on the left side, but turn 1, you actually have to roll a lot of speed through here, kind of use the apex curb, use the exit curb, really try to get the run out, and you see Sylvester flirting with the track limits. Keep the car driver's left. Once again, another rolling corner here. Turn number 3, be careful of this exit curb. You can definitely upset the car depending on which kind of divot you hit out there. And then once again, another long straightaway. Check your mirror, see if anybody's using that slipstream behind you. If not, focus on this brake mark. You're going to see drivers kind of abuse track limits all the way over here to the right. The slowest of the corners here at Road America. Accelerate up the hill. Turn number 6 is always doozy. It's over crest right here, so you really got to balance the car, balance the front end as well as your throttle inputs. Turn number 7 is pretty much flat out. Just flick the car over, jump over both the apex and the exit curbs, and then this is probably the best grip brake zone in the entire track down into what is turn number 8, and then accelerate your way through this flowing carousel section. You have to balance the car on that front left tire while trying to feed it as much throttle as soon as you possibly can. Start to rely on that aerodynamics of the car, and then through the kink, the fastest corner on this racetrack, as you see 6th gear. Very brave. Keep it flat out if you can. And now all the way down to the bottom of the circuit, Canada corner. Another big passing opportunity to stay hard on the brakes all the way to apex. Trail that brake pedal and then get on the gas. You want to stay flat through what is turn number 13 here. And then I was talking about turn 14 earlier. It can be such a doozy of a corner. A lot longer of a radius than what you think. And it's so important to get on the gas because, like I said, it is uphill that start finish line.
So there you go. That's how you are fast around here. Sylvester Canny, good enough for a 2:03.5 over the course of that lap, and just a small margin ahead of Mark Foley as well. Interesting to note that our top 2 in the points, with how close they are, they're sort of close on the grid, but Velez is 4th. And Dirksen is starting 6th. So we'll see if they can make some passes to get up towards the front over the course of this one. As we said, drivers will have opportunities to try and make some passes if need be. But looks like they've given the checkered flag for this session. So it is off to go racing at America's National Park of Speed. And definitely one that you want to get your fuel right. We saw yesterday that it's a bit more of a narrow window at this one, Joey.
When you're using so much fuel at Road America, 4 miles, and the majority of this lap, you are just absolutely standing on the gas, 100% throttle. So, yeah, you better get your fuel numbers right. And then I've mentioned it a couple times. It's an uphill run to start finish. So even if you're, call it 1%, 5% shy, it can cost you all the way up to the line.
Indeed. You don't want to cut it too close out there as we see the cars lining up through the kettle bottoms. So a short pace lap on this one. You know, the other thing that intrigued me last night when we were talking to some of the drivers, I assumed that we would get most of them in low downforce, but I believe one of our podium drivers said that they were running a medium downforce here. Actually, how would you go about it, Joey?
Road America is a two setup track. I think that you have to have more of a medium to higher downforce in terms of the qualifying, because you're only running out there by yourself, right? But then when it comes to the race, you need a fast race car. And how do you make passes at Road America? You need to be in the slipstream and put yourself in a position at the end of the brake zone. So you need to dial the downforce out of the car in terms of that race setup. Very similar idea to what you would find at, let's say, a Watkins Glen or a Mo Sport, where you want the confidence in qualifying, you want the car to go fast by itself, but when it comes to the race, you need to be able to make passes and have that motor.
Up the steep hill that is Bill Mitchell Bend, and over the crest. Lovely shot there as you see them come across and then get ready for the start of this race. Pace car will release control over to Sylvester. However, they cannot go until the drop of the green from the flag stand. So everybody's going to stay patient here, and you have to try and get the best jump possible as they look for that stand off to the left-hand side just as they come over the crest. It's a long run, and there is the green flag. Looks like Sylvester's got a pretty decent start. In fact, the top two start to jot away from the rest of the field. Bit of a gap between them coming up into turn one, but they're going to have to get single file soon. This is a very tricky, swift corner, and as everybody starts to siphon in, so far it's working. Behind them, I'm looking at the back of the field and don't see any incidents. We're clean down to 3.
And you see Julian Velez here. He's just trying to hang on to the outside of the track. Still a little bit of too wide action further back. You saw Mark Rondeau hanging tough on the outside as well, but it's all Sylvester Canny out front. Mark Foley second, Ben Leong third as we charge down to turn 5.
Les lost at least one spot on the start. He's going to try to get it back as he dives down to the inside of turn 5. That's 4th place for him. Back over Woodruff. Behind him, Dirksen is not able to follow through. Looks like a bit of a battle in there between Rex Jarowala and Michael McKinney. No, excuse me, that's Terrence Tong, rather. Oh, but we got an issue at the very back. I think Ken Eskridge and Chris Sherburn involved.
Yeah, I think maybe Rex Jarwala might be involved in that one as well. So turn number 5, cold tires, full of fuel, can definitely catch you out as you see Chris Sherburn finally kind of getting rolling again on the racetrack. But these are our leaders heading down the carousel for the very first time. We just saw cold tires catch people out in turn number 5. You better have them warmed up by the kink.
And thankfully, we're very spread out by this point. You don't want cars too packed together because a wreck could be absolutely catastrophic for the field, but looks good so far. So what happened to Chris Sherburn as he's kind of in a little checkup? Oh, there's a big wreck in front of him. No place to go. And he kind of comes to a halt on his own. Not sure. Did he keep going? Well, eventually.
It was a bit of like an Austin Powers moment right there where he couldn't get around a car in front of him and really he had nowhere to go. I think that Chris was actually doing the right thing, jumping on the brakes. It's just so happened to be a car in front of him still.
Yeah, and it looks like he did keep going. I think we may have found our culprit, though, because the stewards have already penalized Robert Lacroix for that. So he is now serving that black flag coming up through pit lane. It is painful here. This is such a long pit lane.
It is. It starts way back by that Chevrolet bridge that we just saw. So, yeah, and then it's all the way up and over the hill. So this is our lead battle here. So Sylvester, Mark Foley, Ben Leong sitting there in 3rd place with Velez in 4th, trying to give chase and get back up on that podium. But what's actually interesting, Joe, I'm looking at our timing and scoring. I know that we've had a couple positions shuffle around, but I actually think our top 11 is exactly where they still qualified.
Well, other than a pass for, I think it was 3rd or something yesterday, I know the pros had the top 9, I think it was, all in the same position for pretty much the first quarter of the race. So not too shocking, at least from what we saw yesterday, just a bit unusual for a track like this where passing is not much of an issue. Still, they're going to run line astern. Wonder if anybody's going to try and get closer and maybe use some of that fuel saving.
You were mentioning the setups and the downforce levels, right? And I have a feeling that if these, or I should say, if the majority of the drivers are running more of a medium to higher downforce setup, well, what does that do? That kicks up more dirty air back behind the car. I don't think we're going to get any kind of big, long trains, but huge wreck in the kink. I believe that was Neville.
It was. Apologies there. I just saw someone go 4 wheels off, and that's what my first noise was. And then suddenly he got spat across the track. Robert eventually finding an opening and getting the car going, but it is less than a car now, unfortunately. So he's definitely going to have to bring that into pit lane.
A little smushed on the front there. And typically what happens in the kink, I'm sure we'll get a replay here in a lap or two, but if you go off driver's left, you can kind of get the slide going back across the racetrack to the right side, and it's concrete walls on both sides. It never ends pretty.
No, that is such a narrow part of racetrack around here. As we come down the hill, Velez trying to make a bit of a challenge, or maybe actually trying to defend from Woodruff, actually. It looks like he's a lot closer to that car behind. Richard with a decent run. Has not shown great pace here, has Julian. He's already about 2 seconds off the lead.
I think he just needs to kind of, here's the replay here. Watch Robert Neville on the screen. Just got out wide and was more than 2 wheels in the grass, was 4 wheels in the grass, and then that's all she wrote.
Thankfully, the only car involved, it looks like. Everybody else managing to sneak through in the process. Woodruff still hounding Velez in front of him, but that's also Dirks and Julian's championship rival, seeing if he can take a spot. He gets his nose down to the inside, but is chopped off down at the apex of turn 8. And we didn't see it on camera, but he had a little bit of a slide behind them, so he's now lost time there. As we flashed past, you could kind of see the gap that has opened up.
That's crucial, too, because if you lose that, call it 1.2, 1.3 seconds that Dirksen is right there flirting with, you kind of lose that back end of the slipstream. So I'm sure that Derek is hoping to kind of charge it into the brake zone at Canada Corner, maybe make up a tenth or two here and kind of catch the back end of this train again. We've got kind of 2 or 3 packs here. Got the front pack of what is 5 or 6, and then another good solid pack starting with Michael McKinney, Terrence Tong, just a couple seconds back from them.
We saw a lot of that yesterday as well, so not too surprising. Coming off onto the main straight. So actually, we're going to check back in with Terrence Tong. There is that second pack that you were mentioning. He's trying to keep up with McKinney, but he's starting to gap them. That's Rondeau behind him, Adam Chick in the green machine, and then Peter Coomer in the light blue. And they've even, you could count Charlie Boyer kind of in that group as well.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of where it's starting to get just a little bit stretched out. So you'll see a lot of these cars just running such identical pace. Remember, you were talking about how close it was. What was it, 2nd through 8th? That's exactly what we're going to see here. We're looking at 8th through 15th, and the performance window on these drivers is so stacked on top of each other. You're just looking for the smallest little advantage that you can get.
No one seems to be able to find it. They're all just split by about 2 or 3 car lengths. So we watch with McKinney continue to try to run away from this group. He's so close to breaking that slipstream. It is up to about 9/10 of a second at this stage. So how much do they want to try and work together to reel him back in, or is it every man for himself?
I think it's every man for himself, especially so early on, right? We're only 8 minutes into this thing. You're still trying to figure out track positioning and where everybody is maybe faster or slower than you. And Mark Rondeau is one of those drivers who's looking to try to make one of those moves. That's Terrence Tong directly in front of him, kind of falling into that pitfall.
See, Scott Bowers was given a black flag, orange zone violation. Not sure what that one is about, but looks like he'll be around to serve that shortly, although he is already at the back of the pack, so he's having a bit of a miserable day as it is. Still on the lead lap, but I don't think he will be for long.
Let's see if Mark Rondeau here in this gray car with the orange highlights, the orange wing and the orange wheels here can maybe get a little bit closer. He's just looking for a little bit of a stronger slipstream out of turn number 14 to kind of pull him up this front straightaway here. And Terrence does a really, really nice job using all of that racetrack. You see even kicking up some of that dirt on the turn 14 exit curbing, just trying to put that power down as soon as possible. And look at that. He does an excellent job to kind of keep Mark at a good distance here on the straightaway.
staying a threat. That's the main thing that he needs right now, just making sure that that pink Roxy car is not able to run away from him. In fact, yeah, he's got Rexy behind him and Roxy in front of him right now. Let's see what kind of pace he's got off of turn 3. Looks like a pretty decent launch. Yeah, he's a lot closer this time.
See what kind of slipstream he can pull here. I'm already noticing about maybe 1 mile an hour, maybe 1.5 mile an hour faster than Terrence. He's going to look to the inside, but not make a lunge. You see Terrence actually move to the middle of the racetrack right there, kind of in the middle of the brake zone. No harm, no foul. I don't think it was a double move at all, but he definitely senses Rondeau in the mirror.
Yeah, that was one thing that caused problems at the end of last race. A leader moving across at a late moment into the braking zone, and we saw a driver get punted off. So I'm sure that was a bit of a warning for some of the drivers to be sure to leave a little bit of a space if you're going to try and drift back towards the racing line. The battle for 8th, a bit far ahead of the battle for 14th, which is currently Snelling leading Green and Matson. In fact, they're only about a second and a half behind that group that we were watching, so they could catch up to there if they just pick it up a little bit.
It's so tough that when you got that rear view mirror filled with the competitor, that to do your perfect exact lap time, it can be kind of rather distracting. You see on the bottom of the screen, I think that's Matson trying to make the move on Dale Green. So it's just going to put them a little bit further away from Snelling. And in fact, there they go side by side, still side by side up through 13. Looks like Matson did get that position. Up to 15th he goes.
Took a little door banging as well in the process coming off of Canada corner. So glad to see they got away with that. And Matson sets off towards Snelling, or does he? Here comes Green back at him with a very good run. The Vancouver Island region driver could have a shot into turn 1, but there's not as much braking into this corner as some of the others. He shows his nose and he thinks twice about it.
Turn number 1 is usually down only 2 gears, maybe down 3 gears, depending on kind of what car you're running. So you're right, it's not a huge brake zone into turn number 1, but you can kind of put a driver off their game and look towards turn number 3, or maybe kind of further that situation and eventually look down towards turn number 5. That's probably your best passing opportunity.
Hello, hello. When did second get this close? Leung's still tight up on Mark Foley, and in fact Velez seems to have finally kicked it up a gear, and Woodruff is no longer right behind him. He's now attacking on Ben Leung. Takes a little look down into turn 8, but then decides it's not quite time yet. Canny's only been able to get away by about 1.3 seconds ahead of them, so right on the bubble of completely snapping free.
I'd be looking towards this car right here of Velez, and also, like you mentioned, Woodruff, who's kind of given chase in the rearview mirror behind Julian. But both the 33 and that 934 that I was just talking about did 204.9s or faster that time by. The two cars they're giving chase to in the 205. So, yeah, going to have some company here rather quickly.
So we've also got a black flag for Robert Cottle, lane change violation in the orange zone. I believe that's probably before they hit the start-finish line at the initial start, I imagine. So he's going to have to go and serve that one. He's down in 18th right now as we continue to watch this battle for P3. Leung actually got a pretty good exit there. He gets himself a little too far away for Velez to try anything at this stage. Could maybe try and start putting more pressure on the 316 in front of him.
Crucially, that lap time from Foley was a little bit faster than our leader. Now, not huge amounts faster than our leader, but about a tenth, maybe about a tenth and a half. So sometimes that's what you need to do, is that you're not going to immediately erase a 1.2 or 1.5 second gap. You need to go out there, maybe half a tenth here, half a tenth there, and over the course of a few laps, you'll slowly start to chip into it, and it's exactly what Mark Foley's doing. But it's tough when you got Ben Leung showing the nose into turn 5.
Absolutely, no doubt. They're all just kind of keeping half an eye on that to watch out should their competitor make a lunge on them. Nothing happening quite yet amongst them. Dirksen is dropping off now. He's about 1.7 seconds off of Woodruff, so he's not really as much a part of this train. I'm sure he'll want to try and close that in if he hopes to have any effect on Julian Velez. He won't lose too much here, especially with 2 races left to go, but the farther into the season it gets, the more difficult it will be. And more critically, Velez has a drop week of 280 points. Dirksen, 80 points. Very drastic difference between them on that front.
That is a big swing, and kind of as we watch our front group here, I did want to report that Mark Rondeau finally got by Terrence Tong this lap down into turn 5 and up through turn number 6. So now it's Patrick Adamczyk and Peter Coomer on the back of that pink 388 machine of Tong.
Up and over Bill Mitchell Bend once again. Everybody definitely pushing from the body language of the cars that we've got here. Before they start to get into an actual battle, we're going to take a moment to mention Princess Cruises because they're the 2025 PCA title sponsor. As the official cruise vacation partner of Series 13, they provide exclusive offers, including world-leading itineraries across a fleet of 16 elegant ships sailing to more than 330 global destinations. Reach out to the PCA concierge team to book your next adventure today by calling 833-679-2188. Definitely been teasing us here at the front of the field. They've looked so close at times, and then everything seems to pan apart once again amongst these drivers, just accordioning back and forth.
And crucially, as we were reading that out, Velez actually overtook Ben Leung for what is 3rd place. Now, it wasn't any giant move or anything. I didn't notice any big mistake out of Ben. It just seemed like he kind of got off the gas on the front straightaway and let Julian by. So maybe they're coordinating each other. Maybe they're on the radio together. But Julian up into the podium spots.
Excellent job by the 33. And not that far behind Mark Foley after making that overtake either. So that's a little bit interesting. But yeah, Leung and Woodruff with very similar paint schemes. So not sure if they're trying to work together now that they found one another out on the track. We saw a huge difference on fuel saving. The pit stops times varied from 17 seconds up to 22 seconds throughout the field, Joey. So I have a feeling that maybe a few drivers are trying to be sneaky.
That's a very good point. If you can kind of be in the slipstream of somebody else, that means you can lift off the gas down the straightaway. Now, you obviously don't want to be losing that time, but any time that you are not 100% throttle, you're saving a little bit more fuel than anybody else who is flat foot. And what does that mean? You're just going to have to fill up the car a little bit less when you come down pit road. And sometimes that pit stop time is equal to good track position, and that can actually leapfrog you up.
Sylvester Canny just been cruising around at the front, about 1.2 seconds ahead of Mark Foley. It's been that distance for some time now. He seems to have control of this thing, though he's not shaking them. Maybe he's also trying to manage his pace for that fuel as well at this stage. As far as movers, honestly, the driver who's gained the most is Nick Francis. He's up 9. He's in the mid-pack at about 18th position currently. And we're just about getting to where drivers could pit if they wanted to. Anybody who's been down in pit lane by now, unfortunately, will have to make another stop to get to the finish.
I think the only bad part about pitting early is that you're going to have a full fuel load, aka a heavy car, for a long time. So I think generally the whole idea when it comes to strategy, at least in iRacing here, is run the car as light as you possibly can get it, because that equals lap time. The lighter you are, the faster you can go. So I think what we'll see is drivers kind of either split it easy, halfway down the middle of a 60-minute race, pit at 30 minutes, halfway done, easy. Or try to stretch it as far as possible, make that car as light as possible, and then put in as little amount of fuel as possible to make it to the end.
We've had some decent changes here in this pack. McKinney, who was, almost a second ahead, is now 3 seconds ahead of this group. And honestly, more like 3 seconds ahead of Rondeau, who has passed Terrence Tong finally. And then it's another 1.3 seconds from Rondeau back to Tong. So those two in front seem to have finally been able to open up their pace. This is Terrence Tong. he's still dealing with cars behind him, but now at least it's a similarly liveried Rexy car in there with Patrick Adamczyk behind, and then Peter Kummer and Charlie Boyer are also trailing in his mirrors.
Terrence doing a good job just holding his pace out there, still inside the top 10 and ninth place, so just needs to keep on doing what he's doing. Stay mistake-free out there, get into that pit stop window, and then you never know what can happen. Call it in the last 15 minutes of the race. Drivers get all antsy in their pantsy and try to make aggressive moves that they probably shouldn't, and sometimes it's just surviving the whole thing.
Speaking of which, Adamczyk giving a go at things down into turn 3. Unfortunately, can't seem to get by. In fact, that compromised his exit quite a bit. Tong is starting to run away, and now Kummer has got the speed behind him in that blue Porsche that you can see. Let's see whether or not the green 407 will defend coming down to the braking of turn 5 as we get a little bit of cloud cover overhead into here. It looks like no one's going to change position for now.
You saw kind of two different lines between the dyno machines up there. Terrence was a little bit more of the realistic racing line versus Adamczyk kind of abusing the track limits. I'll call it the sim line through turn number 5. And here in iRacing, you can open up the radius at turn number 5. You just have to be more aggressive on those drivers' right curbs. You can kind of engage the ABS, so you got to be familiar with it, and I think that's exactly why Terrence is just kind of sticking on the racetrack right on, call it the normal driving line where he's comfortable.
Yeah, and this is an open setup series. The next 2 next week are going to be fixed, so you won't be able to fiddle with that. Here in these cars, they can try and mess around with the ABS. Another good exit here. You're going to get a pass from Peter down into Canada corner. The answer is no. And he'll sit back there. I've also been keeping watch on Velez because at times he's getting dangerously close to Foley for seconds.
I think that Adamczyk is trying to be pretty aggressive on the brake pedal to defend from Kummer in the rearview mirror, and it's kind of costing him just a little bit on exit. And there, once again, on turn 14, Peter was just able to get a little bit better drive out of the corner and now really using the slipstream. I don't think he's going to be close enough towards turn number 1, but sometimes it's just presenting the car a little bit more. Try to push Adamczyk off of the line a little bit more, so that way you're down there in turn number 3 and maybe can kind of push him even more off of that racing line. But Adamczyk doing a nice job to kind of be unfazed.
Yeah, this is a lot of pressure that he's getting, although he dropped some wheels off out of turn 3. Looks like he managed it well. You can see on the bottom box, Velez has again caught up to Mark Foley, just not able to do anything with it. It is interesting how Velez didn't quite seem to have the optimum qualifying pace, but here in the race, I mean, he's been picking it up nicely.
And here's the thing, we're still only 1.3 seconds behind Sylvester out front. Does Julian have the outright pace? Is he saving fuel when he catches up to these cars such as Mark Foley right now in that 316? I don't know. I think that he certainly is showing pace that he could go chase down Sylvester, but does he want to, or does he want to save fuel?
So in somewhat answer to your question, Velez has a quicker fastest lap than Canny does currently. So yeah, there is speed in that 33. I guess we've just been seeing him playing possum up to this point. And once again, he shows himself a little bit down to the braking. I don't think that was a serious attempt though.
Mark definitely made a mistake somewhere this lap, or maybe our predictor's just a little bit off, but he lost maybe about a half a second. It was only 1.2 seconds till Sylvester up in Kyla turn 7, turn 8 area. Now it's ballooned up to 1.8, 1.9 seconds. So I think that if Velez was right on the back of Foley and only 1.2 seconds behind our leader, I'd say you're okay slipstreaming, but right now, I'd say get a move on.
Only Velez and Leung are the two that have changed any sort of position amongst the top 6 at this stage of the race. It has still stayed quite stagnant at the front of the fields, at least according to our grid at the start. The 33 coming out of turn 3 and heading down the Moraine sweep, trying to get as much of a run as he can to hopefully get at least one more spot and change things up some more. But no, that is definitely not close enough to try and get by Mark and catch up to Canny. Although under braking, that car looked very good into turn 5.
Going back to what I was talking about last lap, I don't actually think it was a mistake at all out of Mark Foley. I just think it was a smoking fast lap time from our leader, a 2:04.6. Compare that to a 2:05.2 that both Foley and Velez ran that last time by. So maybe it's just been kind of pace setting and management from our leader as well. And now he's kind of turned it up to 2 seconds now for the lead.
Here we go. What's Julian got for him? Can he try and work his way up to maybe eventually a win here and continue to extend his gap over Dirksen? In fact, double checking, Velez has not had a win this season yet. In fact, top 2, neither of them have victories under their belt. Ben Leung is the first, sitting in 3rd place, that has taken any sort of victory, and that was back at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. So kind of a fascinating race or championship of consistency at the front.
Joe, I'm not sure if you saw that on the straightaway heading down to Canada Corner, but Velez was all over that headlight flash button, letting Mark Foley know that, hey, we got to get a move on because it's now 1.9, almost 2 seconds to our leader. And you see, here he goes, Velez trying to make a move into turn number 1. This is as close as he's been all race long. And now he's just trying to get that much closer to Foley.
Patience will be needed here. He's got to try and set him up for the corner exits, although he is deep on the brakes once again. That car seems mighty coming into the corners around this track. Did he get a good enough launch coming down the hill as we watch the battle behind them as well? Tong continuing to hold off a whole number of drivers. Mark Foley will hold on to that 2nd place, but Julian Velez is becoming a bit of a force.
Foley defensive on the line into turn number 5 that time. Julian kind of faked a move to the inside and definitely got a reaction out of Foley there. So he knows that Mark is feeling the pressure. And talking about the pit stop, right? Because we're approaching halfway, I do feel it is quickest to get the car as light as possible. But what if you are being held up? What if you can't get around a car in front of you? Is the undercut worth it?
That's what I'm very curious about. If Velez does have more pace, is he being held up? Is it just too difficult in the corners to get the speed that he needs? And honestly, once those pit stops happen, that'll be a big answer to that question. We could see them kind of run on their own if they pit opposite one another, at least.
I'm not sure. Oh, and yeah, Woodruff has problems through the kink there. He was just out of screen, so the driver that was running in 5th place into the wall through the back straightaway.
Oh, and it's another case of a driver getting off at the kink, hit the grass, and then it just spins you around, and there's not much you can do to try and gather it up. So big damage for Woodruff. Now, they do have a spare car. If he's smart, I would say he'd probably come in now, take that, and get out as if nothing happened.
100%. Yeah. And the kink is, call it 2/3, maybe 3/4 of the way around this racetrack. So you're only limping a wounded car for not too long. And I think that's exactly what he's doing. He's already on pit road.
So going to be forced into an early stop on this one. And things have gotten pretty exciting back here. I think this is Heimbucher versus Coomer coming into turn 1. Heimbucher not able to make the pass. Peter going to hold him back, but he was side by side for a brief while coming up into the braking zone.
And Kellen is actually one of our biggest movers right now. It's kind of between him and Sherburne, who just kind of overtook it with +9. So Kellen in this, call it AutoZone parking lot, tie-dye themed car, is trying to be the biggest mover up into the top 10.
AutoZone parking lot.
Yeah,
is that
like
a
an oil
reference to the
slick.
oil? I love it. I love it. That does seem apropos here. And as he comes around through the turn 6 run across the hill, he still holds on to the back of Peter, at least for the time being. Don't worry, I'm keeping my eyes on the top spot. Nothing's really changed up there, but they're still teasing us by staying close-ish to one another. Heimbucher maybe backing off a bit to collect himself after that failed attempt. Now we're going to turn our attention up to the front once more. This is second, third. Oh, and excuse me, this is the replay. Or no, is that live?
That is live. That looked almost identical. I thought that was the replay as well, but that's Ben Leung, who was in fourth place, lost it in an identical manner as Woodruff, and now actually collected one of the other cars. I think that might have been Derek Dirksen involved as well.
It truly was almost the exact same up until the very end of the wreck. Dirksen did get involved with it. He's taking his pit stop. Oh, just a crucial moment in the championship, this race, and it is all going wrong for Derek Dirksen.
Oh, my goodness. I could not believe that. I totally thought that was queuing up the replay, because as soon as we do get the replay, it's going to look identical, Joe.
Yeah, that is really wild. And the fact that the cars were the same paint had us both fooled on this one, or at least very similar paints on these machines. So they've all headed in, and it seems like about the halfway point is where drivers start to crack, and Road America claims a few victims.
Oh, my goodness. It's such a fast corner on that racetrack, and if you make any sort of mistake, you are in for a ride. But I think it kind of changes the complexion of what Julian has to deal with now. So let's take a look at the replay of Ben first off here. See, does he get 2 wheels or 4 wheels off? Oh, Joe, he was actually loose already through the middle of the corner. So maybe even on driver entry, on corner entry, and then you saw Dirksen pretty much had nowhere to go.
That is so frustrating. You're coming around there so fast. You can see the smoke, you can see the dirt, but it's sometimes hard to predict which way the car will go. Yeah, we'll get a front row seat to it. You can see it on the left-hand side. Oh, and at the last second, he thought it was opening up on the left, and it closed.
It's tough because these cars have ABS, right? Even no matter how hard you stand on the brakes, the car still rolls, which can be kind of the difficult thing in judging that avoidance.
And Derek, I think, maybe had to come to a halt on that one. Ben Leung gets a black flag for that, for causing an incident, which I know sounds cruel, but they try to stay consistent across that. If you cause another car problems, Lacroix causes himself problems with a spin down at turn 8. Now, I think, and I hope, is we got a fake for the pit lane from Canny, and he has been caught up a little bit. So not sure if he's trying to see if he can psych those out behind him who are starting to gain. I was going to say, before this erupts, let's talk about Princess Cruises, because they're the 2025 PCA title sponsor. And as the official cruise vacation partner of Series 13, they provide exclusive offers, including world-leading itineraries across a fleet of 16 elegant ships, sailing to more than 330 global destinations. Reach out to the PCA concierge team to book your next adventure today by calling 833-679-2188. What's happened to Canny here? He's much slower, and Foley is catching it at a rapid rate. In fact, a defensive line from Sylvester. Did he hit something? Is he off pace?
I don't think so. I just think he got way out of shape out of turn number 14, that last lap, and it kind of cost him up the front straightaway. We saw it kind of a fake down to pit road, but I actually think he was just naturally over there. So I'm going to get a little tricky here with this strategy. If I'm in third place, Julian Velez, I would do the opposite of what our 2 leaders are. And there goes Sylvester off the racetrack. It's not going to cost him anything because he can just stay drivers, right? But if I'm this yellow 33, do the opposite of the front 2. Get yourself a clean track.
Absolutely. But what's going on with the 13? For such a flawless race in the first half of it, it seems like something is wrong out here. Don't know if maybe he's having a hardware issue, maybe with his computer, but we had not seen mistakes like this during the first 30 minutes and closing in down into Canada corner. Julian Velez looks like he smells blood in the water.
He certainly does, and crucially, Sylvester was able to kind of gather it back up the last half of this lap, and it seems like he's back on pace. And if anything, Foley was a little bit faltering there through turn number 14. So once again, all of our top 3 stay out there on the racetrack.
Down towards turn 1 once again. And Velez just hounding Foley. He's been doing this for a lot of the race now. Hasn't been able to find his way by, but the sense of urgency has kicked up. Before, you could see Canny was a bit of a distance, and he didn't necessarily need to pass him right away. Now, that car is right there. He knows that a possible win is on. First win of Series 13 for the yellow 33.
And look, I'm all about data. You want to run this thing as dry as possible to make it as fast as possible, but you also have to be realistic when it comes to strategy. These cars are capable of doing high 204s right now. All three of our leaders have been consistent high 204s. However, there has been inconsistencies the last handful of laps. A 205.5, 205.6 was the last pair of laps from our leader back there. So I'm looking at third. Bring it in right now. You're capable of doing 204s with more fuel in the car. You could easily pass them.
Absolutely. And top 13 drivers do still owe us a pit stop. And he should hopefully be able to cycle in behind them. It's about 40 seconds down to Steve Komatz, who is the farthest down that still needs to stop for fuel. And in fact, I think the stops are long enough that we've seen drivers even take some tires at time for this one. As they head through the kettle bottoms, will any of them blink? They've only got maybe 2 more laps of fuel.
See if anybody makes mistakes here through Canada corner. 1, 2, 3, nicely through the apex and accelerate up the hill here. If anything, Foley was maybe, call it quarter of a car width off the apex at turn 13. Nothing to really cost any sort of time. Oh, there's a mistake out of Sylvester, our leader. Once again, wide out of turn number 14. That's where we saw the mistake a couple laps ago that definitely cost him some track time.
And they're weaving across this front stretch to try and pull that slipstream. Sylvester knew that he needs to do some sneaky things to try and run away here. Doesn't really work, unfortunately, because they're within 0.4 of a second. Mark Rondeau among our front runners to first blink here. So he's coming down pit lane, and we'll see where he emerges in relation to those who have pitted, because he wasn't too far behind this group, but this top 3, they've separated themselves by about 4 seconds down to Michael McKinney in 4th place. When will they start to come down and finally take their stops?
Remember how I said that the last lap was a 205.5? This lap from Foley is a 204.3. That just goes to show you kind of the inconsistencies that I'm talking about. So sometimes you get so wrapped up in the battle, you know you can pass them, that it's great to have a crew chief. That's one thing that was always so great about, being in a real race car, is to have somebody on that other line of information. They have more information than you, and they can kind of guide you in the right direction. But here in the sim racing world, this driver is the strategist. He is the crew chief. He's doing all of those roles in one. And you can kind of see how things can get a little bit convoluted out there. A lot going on inside that sim racing cockpit.
I can confirm there is a big gap right now if they do pit, so you won't be held up by traffic. Someone's got to come in, especially because this might be it. It's going to be close on if drivers can go one more lap around, depending on if they have been saving fuel this race. Oh, and I think something happened to Peter Coomer. We'll check on that in a bit, but here we go, coming off of the final corner. Who dives in? The leader does. Mark Foley does. Velez does.
And, I'm going to throw out the line, the classic line. If you want to win the race, you're going to have to do something different than the leader. But 1, 2, 3, all down pit road. So it's going to come down to maybe, Joe, who saved the most? Who's actually going to put the least amount of fuel in the car? Because that could still be different.
That's true. Shorter pit stop might help out here. In fact, I think this looks like the end of the pit window for pretty much the entire field. Not seeing anybody go around for the last minute here of the 20 to go. So
I think that Sylvester's going to lose the lead here. He was very, very slow getting into his box, and crucially, Foley was actually stopped before Sylvester. This is going to be tight coming off of pit road.
Oh, and Peter Coomer coming in to repair his car sped into pit lane, so he's got a black flag Where will the drivers come out? Look at Velez. He jumps both of them. He is into the lead. Foley jumps Canny, who was leading this race and probably sucking up the most fuel. And McKinney gained a ton of time in those pit stops. My goodness, how did he gain that much?
So Julian opted to save fuel, right? I was screaming, come in, get back out there and do maximum pace on the racetrack. But what he opted to do is save fuel behind those two cars, and that equals about 1 second shorter on that pit fill time. That's how he leapfrogged his two competitors.
Also leapfrogging, Tong managed to get ahead of Marc Rondeau in the pit stops, despite, I believe, going longer than him. So that was an interesting little bit. There's Peter Coomer.
Terrence's pit stop time kind of scares me, though, Joe. Only 18 seconds of fuel. Generally, what I'm seeing around here is about 21 seconds of fuel. And even at that, Julian is only at a 20.5. So if we're looking at the two lightest cars, the two lightest fills, Julian and Terrence.
Now, remember what I said yesterday. We had from about 17 seconds up to 23. And I don't believe we had anybody who ran out of fuel. Here's what happened to Peter. And once again, just going wide. Unfortunately, losing the grip means bye-bye. And you're gone through the kinks. So he'll hopefully have that car repaired and get back out there. This is that battle I was talking about. Tong managed to get the track position. But for how long? Marc Rondeau with a run coming down the Kettle Bottoms.
It's going to be on the wrong side of the racetrack. How deep can they go on the brakes? Are both of them going to keep it on the racetrack? Pinches Terrence down. Little bit of door contact. Marc Rondeau still on the racetrack. And if anything, he's got to look out for Richard Woodruff now. Remember, Richard had that huge moment in the kink, but got that fast repair, brand new car. So now a 3-car battle for 6th place. There goes Rondeau off the racetrack in turn 14.
Oh. That's a shame. Robbed us of a great battle there. By the way, Chris Sherburne also going to lose some spots. He sped into pit lane. Rondeau trying to get back up to speed, but man, he is paying the price. Look at everybody blowing by here.
Yeah, and it's just because he was virtually stopped in turn number 14, so giving up a lot of track position after a little bit of that self-spin. He was a little bit on the back foot after getting the door closed in Canada corner, but got to keep it mistake-free still.
Boyer there ahead of Adamczyk and Hein Bucher. As we come back to our top 3, really interesting how it came out in a mirror image to what we had before on the pit stops between these 3. Foley staying in the same spot, but he at least was able to get by Canny after Velez jumped him. But will this change around once again in the last few laps as we get a double view here with Rondeau having his spin out of the final corner? Yeah, just simply maybe a bit too much speed, and the rear said, I can't do that.
That's exactly what happened. I wonder if Steve Comat's, almost identical for the 210. Unfortunately, he got into that concrete wall there before the tire bundle started, so I'm sure he took a trip down pit road. But I think my only question mark among these top 3 here is, did Julian put enough gas in the car to make it to the end? And I think our dark horse, we haven't really talked about him too much in the last 15-20 minutes. Check out that black and pink car. Talk about the fastest car on the racetrack. Michael McKinney is up to 4th. And now he's starting to close in on Sylvester.
Yeah, I was really impressed with how quick he was in and out on his pit stop to gain on that group. By the way, we did have a change down to that battle between Adamczyk and Boyer. It looks like Patrick is up to 7th now in that one. Could we have a change to the lead? Foley, who was very comfortable being in front of Velez, says, I'd prefer to be back there if you'd like. And I don't think Velez would like that, as he is able to hold him off for now, but it was close coming into turn 1.
So we know that Foley can kind of sit there in the draft and get pulled along just fine. He wasn't able to get passed by Julian earlier, but how is Julian in clean air? Remember, he's had 2 cars pulling him along in that slipstream all race long, but now with 16 minutes remaining, he has got to do all of that management, all of that pace setting all by himself. He seems just fine up there, but it is a different role to be in.
I believe the Les has had a second, a fourth, a third, and a third so far in Series 13. So again, very, very consistent, just never seems to be able to wind up on the top step. Foley's going to try and deny him that if possible. Coming down through the carousel, though, he's got to get closer than this. Whatever he was doing last lap, it brought him right up to him. He needs to maybe do that again.
And kind of the run from McKinney is a little bit stalled out, but I want to point something out on timing and scoring. The current fastest lap of the race, a 2:04.1 out of that black and pink number 527. That's a half second faster than our leader.
Wow. So, I mean, McKinney truly is fast. I mean, where was he sleeping this whole time? Because, my goodness, he could go and win this race if he plays his cards right.
100%. If he's got enough fuel and he can kind of get that track position, he can definitely go up there and challenge the leaders. And oh, what happened to Julian there? Maybe a little bit of a slipstream. Wonder, does he have a little bit of a slowdown penalty? I'd find that hard to believe here at Road America.
No, I think he was just trying to break the draft a little bit there. Just weaving to try and keep them off of him for a second. And Foley was not able to gain, so it worked decent enough for the time being. Meanwhile, coming up the hill once again, this is Heimbucher with Boyer just ahead of him. Adamczyk trying to run away after he made that overtake. These three have definitely given us some fun in the mid-pack, so I'm glad we're giving them some love here.
Yeah, and Kellen and I think maybe just a couple seconds behind, it looks like, is David Snelling, who's actually in a battle with Rondeau as well. But those are our two biggest movers. Kellen's up 11 positions, and David just behind him is up 12 positions.
Well, we might have a change for a spot here because Heimbucher's got a really good run coming down the Moraine sweep. Haven't seen Boyer go defensive quite yet. The line does drift across the track a little bit. No, he leaves the door open. Kellen is way deep into the turn. Almost forces him out wide a little bit, but he makes it clean.
Up that position he goes. So up into our biggest mover spot is Kellen Heimbucher in that number 14. Hopefully he's going to focus forward, see if he can go chase down Patrick Adamczyk now.
Well, these drivers are hoping to cruise to the finish. You can take a wonderful cruise with Princess Cruises, as they are the 2025 PCA title sponsor. As the official cruise vacation partner of Series 13, they provide exclusive offers, including world-leading itineraries across a fleet of 16 elegant ships, sailing to more than 330 global destinations. Reach out to the PCA concierge team to book your next adventure today by calling 833-679-2188. This is the final quarter of the race now, and it is still not decided. The top three have been so close, and now it's become the top four. In fact, will we see Canny lose another position? Here comes McKinney looking up the inside. This is going to be from a long way back if he makes this happen. And no, I didn't think so. It was almost a full car length away.
So the mistake came in turn 14 for Canny that previous time around, and that's really what allowed McKinney to close in on that slipstream. And remember, we've seen turn 14 be a little bit of the problem area all race long for Sylvester Canny in that number 13 car that currently sits in third place. So maybe that's the chink in the armor that McKinney is looking for. Just go up there and kind of pressurize him in that last corner, see if he can force a bigger mistake.
And we've seen multiple mistakes out of Sylvester out of that final turn. So yeah, I'd say that's really the place to try and do it. Get your launch up into turn one. Hopefully you can time it right and be able to get by, and then go up to see if you can attack first and second. Down into the hurry downs we go, and he's a little bit too far back right now, so we'll have to try again a little bit later. Top four are separated by less than 2 seconds between all of them. Oh, something's happened to Adamczyk. I'm not sure what, but he's dropping down the order right now.
Yeah, and he's up at turn number 6 is where he's at. This is such a difficult corner, especially if you're side by side with somebody. And in fact, Joe, I went back on my screen. It was just a complete self-spin for Adamczyk there up at the top of the hill over the crest. Car balance is difficult always there.
It's such a shame. He's been having a good race and made some great passes, but he's undone his hard work, and he's now 2 down from where he started all the way to 13th because of that. 2 down for Sylvester here. As we watch the replay on Adam Chick. Yeah, just came in a little bit too hot. The car does get awful light over that crest.
It's a push-you-lose situation. You come up over the crest and the front end's got no grip, and then when gravity finally sets in at the top, all the grip is on the front and nothing's on the back. So, yeah, you kind of have to dance it around that corner the entire distance. I do want to give credit. I was talking about Terrence Tong just kind of setting his pace halfway through this race, and actually fallen down to, I believe, 9th or 10th. But, Joe, you had pointed out his strategy bounced back with a short pit stop, and he's sitting in 5th place right now with a 5-second gap back to Woodruff.
It's looking fantastic. Even if he does have to save fuel a little bit, he's got some buffer, that is for sure. As we continue to watch this battle for 9th between Snelling and Rondeau. That's Snelling in the red machine, Rondeau in the gray just behind him. That was a little wide there from David. Mark knows he's got a chance. Can he reel him in time?
I think that Mark Rondeau deserves the Dory Award today. It seems like he's been up battling these guys a couple times, and then maybe a little bit of a spin sets him back in terms of track position. Then he's got to go back up there and pass them all over again. He's still sitting here with the 10th place finish, looking for a little bit more.
Snelling, though, we should credit him as well. 13 positions gained, same as Kellen Heimbucher, who's also up 13 from where he started. Needed a little bit of a defense there, did David. Coming into turn 8. Mark not able to do it, although there's a slip up. Door is open. He tries to sneak inside. There's going to be contact between them, and that is going to spin Snelling off to the side. 3 cars go through.
I know it's tough if you're the number 22, but I mean, on my screen, the door was open by a full car width, and Rondeau put the nose there. I think that Snelling tried to close it a little bit late and unfortunately kind of got turned around. But check this out. Mark Foley may be slipping up a little bit this lap, and Canny is trying to put it together.
Yeah, Velez has just been staying out of reach by the smallest of margins. It's only about half a second between himself and Foley, and that's all he needs to win this race, although it's not comfortable. Let's see if he can hold on for, 9 more minutes. So here's Snelling. Yeah, there's the slip up. He knew he was slow. He tried to hold to the inside, went to turn into the corner, but guess what? There's a car there.
It would be a completely different story if the 22 didn't make a mistake in turn number 8, but because he made a mistake, it put him on the back foot and he left the door open. You got to expect a car there.
Down into the braking of turn 5. All top 4 drivers nose to tail with so few laps left. We had a real stunning finish. Here's another look at it. Yeah, his car was there. I know it may have been a bit late towards it, and maybe he didn't get the spotter call in time, but I think Snelling maybe should have been a little bit more aware.
You always must leave the space, I think is what the saying goes. But it's tough. I'm sure race control will look at it, and I can armchair quarterback it all I want over here, but all that matters is the steward's decisions.
Haven't seen anything from them quite yet, but that seems like when a car gets spun, someone's probably going to get a penalty out there. But yeah, it's high bar has been set by the pro class in terms of exciting finishes. Well, we're going to get another exciting one. That's a little too deep. Over under there for Mark Foley, or is it? He gets a better launch, but they're side by side. That's going to be Sylvester with the inside into turn 13, and he'll come away with it. Opportunity knocks for Michael McKinney, but it's going to have to be the long way around to turn 14, or maybe he'll go for the over under now. As he lines himself up, he gets the launch, he gets the inside.
He's going to try to side draft Foley this entire distance. Now, Mark Foley's going to have the advantage of the slipstream from Canny, but look at the setup on Michael McKinney's car. He has got the downforce dialed out of this thing, still able to motor down the front straightaway and up into a podium position.
Oh, and now it was a bit too wide for Sylvester. Could he give up that spot he worked so hard for? And will it be McKinney who is the one that gets through. Velez and all the action has jumped away to about 2 seconds. There you see him flash by in the foreground. He's using this chance to say bye-bye.
And watch McKinney, because if he truly does have a lower downforce, Sylvester Canny is going to be a sitting duck. There goes Michael McKinney hard into the back of Canny. He can't get the car stopped. The front two, I should say second and third, are off the track, giving Mark Foley second place.
Something is in the water here in Wisconsin, that the last laps of the race, everything completely falls apart for the leaders. Foley gets back into second. Sylvester at least holds on to third, but McKinney's all the way back in fifth. Just completely missed his brake marker.
Yeah, missed the brake marker and also just missed the inside shot past Canny. I'm actually very impressed that Sylvester's car is still in one piece and on the racetrack.
And guess what? Terrence Tong now moves to fourth because of that. I don't know if we'll see any sort of penalty happen from any of the cars in front of him. I honestly would have put that more on Michael McKinney if it was me, but we're not the stewards, so we'll see.
Yeah, I don't see how it could go against Sylvester or anybody else. There wasn't like a double move in the brake zone or anything like that I saw that was any sort of malicious or dirty driving. So I think a little bit of a self-inflicting penalty for sure. But you're right, Terrence up into fourth.
Is there any more twists in this tale? We got 5 more minutes left to go. There's still a couple laps on the board as Velez crosses the line. Canny trying to get that second place back. He's still got Foley in front of him. And the question is there any damage on Sylvester with that little bit of contact as well?
That's a good point. I'll go ahead and take a look here. Let's ride on board Michael McKinney. Fakes to the right, then looks to the left, and you know, there was room on the left side of Sylvester there. I just think that Michael probably didn't want to flirt with the grass a little bit, because if you do get those left sides in the grass, you could go bowling there and all 3 of them could kind of be taken out. Unfortunate for sure.
Not able to try and get his back here.
Michael McKinney was just black flagged, unfortunately. We kind of saw it coming, though.
Yeah, it seemed pretty much the obvious choice and the obvious outcome on that one. So McKinney will have to serve that probably next time by. We discovered, well, I knew at least last night, that if you try to serve a black flag on the last lap, it doesn't do anything and you just lose more positions. You still get the post-race time penalty. So you got to make sure and be aware of what's going on, how much time you have left, and we'll see if McKinney comes in to try and serve that here as we watch that fight for P2, Canny versus Foley. But I feel like this was such a missed opportunity for Sylvester Canny. You and I were kind of talking behind the scenes there. He seems so solid in the first half. I don't know what happened here.
If we look to mistakes, now we're still racing, right? There's still 3 minutes left. He can still go up there and claim second place from Mark Foley, but it's been this corner right here. Turn number 14 has been the nemesis of Sylvester, and once again, about a car width and a half off of the apex, which is going to cost him all of this exit speed. He'll close back up to Foley, but he won't have a shot into turn number 1. And the other mistake that kind of jumps out at my mind, Joe, extremely slow into his pit box during that pit stop, which of course cost him a couple positions as well.
Both of them doing good down into turn 1. There was a defense from Foley into the final corner, and that cost him some speed there. I can report that McKinney did manage to serve it this lap. It is 2 to go, actually, this time by. So there's some time left for the drivers. And no doubt Sylvester will be hungry to try and return himself into P2 if he can do that at the very least.
Does have one of the fastest laps of the race at a 2:04.2. Remember, I was talking about how McKinney had a 2:04.1 earlier. It seems like our top 3 have kind of picked up the pace with a light fuel load as well. So Sylvester's fastest lap, a 2:04.2 now. Maybe a little bit left in the tank here to try to get by Foley.
Watching from the onboard briefly, looking off the gearbox of Mark. back at Sylvester Canny. They'll head down the hill through the carousel once again. Both of them going to have to navigate the kink, which has claimed its fair share of victims earlier on in this race. So you don't want to mess about with this one and keep it nice and tidy through there. Both of them well within the track boundaries and not onto the concrete. The gap ahead of them, there you can see it visually, is about 3.5 seconds up to Julian Velez. He is so close to getting his first win of Series 13.
You just kind of mentioned what exactly I was going to say, is that once Julian was able to kind of break that slipstream, about maybe a handful of laps ago, maybe 7 laps ago or so, there has been no looking back. He has been pure focus out the windshield, hitting his marks every single lap, every single turn, and now it's grown to nearly 4 seconds with only 1 lap remaining.
Barney with the white flag, only 1 to go for our drivers on the track. And our top 2, or at least our second and third, has not been decided. Can Mark Foley keep it in this second position, or is Sylvester going to steal this one back? Looks for the launch off the corner, carries a fair bit of speed, and he's close. This might be one of the few opportunities. Does he take it?
He is closer. Foley maybe didn't roll as much apex speed as Canny did. Canny with a really late fake to the inside forces Foley in the middle of the racetrack. So not going to be the passing opportunity into turn number 5, but it's just inching that little bit closer. I'd look towards Canada corner.
Yeah, that and turn 8, pretty much the only decent places to make an overtake here in the rest of the lap, unless you really get a run up to the line over your rival. But I would not bank on that from what we've seen yesterday and today. He keeps with him, but he's going to need to be closer than that. This is not looking good for the 13.
Maybe just kind of try to hope for a mistake through the kink, but when you're up at the top 3 of these races, you usually have a pretty good grip on what's happening with the race car and the racetrack, and Foley actually with a little bit of a lift through the kink there. So now Sylvester closes it in, but still about a half a second back.
Oh, it's going to be close. It'll be tight. But what's going to happen between them out of that final corner? That will be the deciding factor, it looks like, here at the end of this race. He could get a launch if he absolutely nails it. We'll come out of the final turn in the meantime with Julian Velez coming up to the flag stand and getting his first win in 2025 here in PCA. Behind him, Foley ahead of Canny, and it was a 1/4 of a second as they crossed, and Mark wound up holding on to that second place. Sylvester at least finishes on the podium, but I think there are mistakes to be cracked down upon in his racing for the next few rounds.
Very well managed from Julian. You know, I was screaming to do the undercut, but he did the right thing and saving fuel and passing him on pit road to collect that win. And I do think that Sylvester had an opportunity there in turn number 14, that last lap, Joe, but turn 14 woes struck again. He just couldn't find the apex.
Terrence Tong with an excellent 4th as well. Woodruff gets himself a top 5, which is actually where he started, but still a race that seemed kind of quiet from his front. Otherwise, drivers that really gained a lot of spots includes David Snelling up 10, but it was Kellen Heimbucher who gained 14 today and got himself a 6th place finish. That was a phenomenal run out of him. And here is our unofficial results. Velez, your winner for the first time in Series 13. Mark Foley behind him in second. Sylvester Canny with some work to do, but still gets himself a top 3 in club class. Terrence Tong climbing up to 4th. Well done. Richard Woodruff in 5th. And Kellen Heimbucher, as I said, up 14 to finish 6th. Charlie Boyer in the P7. Mark Rondo in 8th, and Dale Green in 9th. Mike Madsen rounds out your top 10.
Patrick Adamczyk here in 11th place with David Snelling, one of the big movers, to finish in 12th. David Glenn finishing here in 13th. Michael McKinney slips back to 14th after that penalty. Derek Dirksen in 15th. Peter Coomer 16th. Chris Sherburne 17th. Ben Leung 18th. Steve Komatz 19th. And Ken Eskridge rounding out the top 20.
Gary Reese was 21st today, Rex Jarawala 22nd, and Robert Cottle 23rd. They were all involved in incidents at the start of the race. Nick Francis a lap down in 24th, Scott Bowers a lap down in 25th, and then from there you have your DNFs with Lacroix, Aosh, Neville, and Doran. And I don't see our drivers waiting for us quite yet. Hopefully they will come in, because I'd love to get some thoughts from them on how this race went, as we get some sights of the man of the hour finally breaking that duck, Joey, and getting that first win.
It's always nice to stand on top of the podium for the first time, especially if you haven't won yet this season. It kind of tends to open the floodgates, so we'll have to see if Velez kind of collects a couple more wins to close out this season. I do want to point out our top 5 finisher, Richard Woodruff. Remember, he was in the wall at the kink early on in the race and still ended up with the top 5.
Incredible recovery out of him. Looks like we finally have Julian Velez. So let's have a chat with him about this win that seemed to be very well planned out. Julian, congratulations. You finally stand on the top step. Was that all down to the pit stop? Because you jumped 2 cars in that.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't think I was fuel saving at all, trying to keep up with them and make some passes along the way. And yeah, I guess being in their draft for most of the race, I definitely ended up saving some fuel, and I can't believe I got out. I even overfueled by a little bit, and still managed to get out there.
Taking till race 5, obviously not ideal, but you've been just massively consistent. Do you feel like this kind of turns things over for you, finally getting this win, so that now you can get a few more to wrap up a good title?
Yeah, I mean, I really hope so. For some reason, I'm still haunted by these qualifying gremlins, and I was only able to put in 1 lap today before I crashed. And yeah, I just need to continue my plan. I'm a little disappointed that I got that 1X. I was really trying to keep this 0X race again and just stay consistent, and that's what's been working for me this season. And yeah, I'm looking forward to see what happens next round. I've never been to that track.
Yeah, the Hungaroring, very different to here, with it being more technical and fewer long straights. Are you concerned at all about the lack of qualifying costing you there if you can't get the speed up?
I don't know. Hopefully I can put in a good qualifying and stay in the top 5 or 10 like I usually do. And I do like tight technical tracks, so if that's what I'm hearing, then I'm sure I'll enjoy the next track and hopefully put up a good fight.
We'll be looking out for you again. Congratulations on the win.
Thank you very much, guys, and thank you for everyone else with your help and all your support. Thank you.
It's Julian Velez, your winner here today. And then, of course, we've got second place, Mark Foley, who had a lot of pressure in behind him.
Yeah, Mark, congratulations, first of all, in the second place here at Road America.
Well, thank you very much. Fun race.
Well, it seemed like you were stuck in second place there for the majority of it. Well, what did you need to kind of get up there and get in the lead?
Well, either a little more pace or someone to make a mistake. But I was happy in second and just kept my pace, kept the car clean, and we'll see how it shakes out in the end. And ended up second anyway.
And coming into that pit stop, did you feel like you could kind of jump Sylvester like you did? And Julian just kind of coming out of nowhere with that one from third to first as well.
Yeah, he made a really good pit. I just heard from Sylvester. He said he was running out of gas. He ran out of gas there in the pit, so it slowed his entry into the pit box.
Oh, so that's why it was so slow going in. Well, hey, you know what? You took advantage. You were in the right spot at the right time. So congrats on that second place finish here today. Is there anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Well, thank you very much. Yes, of course. Princess, thanks for the sponsorship. And PCA. Great group, great bunch of guys to race with. Always a lot of fun. And also, I've been working with Bryce Rodriguez, who you saw last night. And big thanks out to him. He's been helping me a lot.
That was one heck of a race from Mark Foley, finishing in second place here today at Road America in that white and red 316, Joe.
And behind Mark was our pole sitter, Sylvester Canny. Let's talk to Sylvester. And see what he thought of how this race went, considering, Sylvester, you started on the pole, you wound up in third. Were you disappointed with that result? Are you happy? How are you feeling?
I think I'm pretty happy. Of course, being in first, set a good qualifying. I wish I could have held on to it. Just some poor fuel management on my end. I actually ran out of fuel going into the pit. And that's where it started going downhill, unfortunately.
We noticed a few mistakes, especially coming out of the final corner. Was that a real struggle area? Was the car not good in that turn?
I think that's just the car was good. User error, to be honest with you. Trying to push too hard. And as we know, pushing too hard isn't always the fastest. Luckily, I was able to hold on and not cause, any accidents on myself or somebody else. So, yeah.
Well, your second race of the season out here with the club class. Are you going to be back for the final two? Are you going to be around for Hungaroring?
Yes, I believe I will be. Yep. Super excited for it. That's a good track.
Well, we look forward to seeing you there. Before we let you go, you want to give a shout out to anybody?
Just want to thank PCA Sim Racing, great league, and Princess Cruises, thanks to everyone who races in the league, and they're all fair, clean drivers. So yeah, appreciate it all.
Good stuff there from Sylvester Canny, who came home third today with an excellent podium. But we're going to wrap it up with a reminder of what is coming up next time. That'll be March 20th for the club class, going off to the Hungaroring. And this GP course will be a real test for these cars because they do not have the downforce that Formula One has. However, make sure and join us because in less than a week, we'll be back here Wednesday night, March 12th, for the sport class at Road America. So join us for that one. And in the meantime, a big thank you to the steering committee at PCA Sim Racing, as well as to our team tonight, Ramiro and Joey. And thank you for watching tonight's broadcast of PCA Sim Racing. I'm Joe Peak, and until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.